Jim Beebe here, back at it, athlete builder. We have Anton Talamantes here today. And as always, we're powered by the AE Institute, the Mental Edge Academy. Hit me up about that, where we are working on people's mental performance, mental health, high school, college, and pro teams, individuals. There's a process just like planning out your food, planning out your training. So hit me up for the Mental Edge Academy. A little bit about Anton. Army guy, wrestling guy, mixed martial arts guy, lifting guy, all around good guy, wants to help people, works at Allendale Behavioral Health, helps people with sobriety, helps people with training. Honestly, just helps people build the best versions of themselves. And with Kaizen being one of the show's core values, which means constant improvement, we're lucky to have Anton on today. He was a two-time state champ in wrestling, JUCO national champ, went to Ohio State, national qualifier, ranked as high as third in the country. From there, was also in the Army, wrestled for the Army, went during wartime, ended up as a sergeant. Been training ever since, all about building the mind and building the body. We're going to get into it today. And Anton, man, thanks for being on the show.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
Should be a lot of fun. He's out of Fort Wayne, and if you
Yep.
guys know our host, our other host, Lucas Lorian, he's up there as well as in Northside. Anton has Bishop Dwanger roots from back in the day, and he's not quite my age. I'm 51. He's just slightly younger than I am, so we're gonna have probably some old dad jokes along the way. But Anton, if I could ask you on the national championship level in wrestling, would you rather coach someone to win the whole thing, or would you rather win the whole thing yourself?
I'd say for me, man, winning it is probably the thing that would be the coolest thing to do. Even though coaching somebody would be right up there, if not on the same level for sure.
When you're coaching someone else, it's almost like it's one of your kids. What I tell
Yeah,
people, like if
yeah.
you care about your kid, you're gonna kind of do the extra things, give them the lessons, and you want for that kid or that athlete more than you want for yourself. Um, Talk about some of the return on investment, the joy, the happiness you get from coaching other people.
Well, I think that the biggest thing is, I don't know. I think that over the years, seeing somebody go from where they're at to like sometimes people don't believe as much in themselves, and you get to see that process where they start to believe and they start to have some success, and really see them blossom into what they're capable of is a really cool feeling, a really cool thing to see and experience. Because I believe like it's all in the mind, right? I think that if someone has a natural, normal athletic ability, it's the mind that takes us to the highest levels, you know. So when you see that in somebody, when you see them turn that corner on that one thing, you know what I mean? Whether it's a move, an action, a, a determination to succeed, and then they get it. It's just such a great feeling for them to see that they realize something, right? That's a cool thing that I don't think you can ever like. Once you get it, you have it for life, which is a beautiful thing.
The thing is, people don't understand or realize or recognize that in general, our brains are predisposed to look for the negative. It's a bit of a defense mechanism. I can't do this. This could be hurtful. I could be in trouble here. My ego could be on display. Something bad can happen, right? So a lot of people, they start with doubt. Only a few people just start with, hey, man, I'll be just fine. Most people that need to have some mental or physical reps at something for them to believe. So when you see them have like a new personal record on the mat or in the weight room, you know that translates to what they're going to do in the classroom or in the office place, right? They
Yeah,
just
awesome, awesome.
it just unlocks something in their head that, hey man, if I could do this, then I could probably do something else if I just keep at it, right? And that's the joy, I think, man. Getting some people to have that little bit of belief.
I
Um,
think that for me, like seeing that is like I always tell people like I'm a big advocate for people to train for their whole life in
mhm.
whatever capacity, whatever way that they like. It's not like I'm big on weight training and hitting the heavy bag. I teach people mixed martial arts, so like how to hit the mitts, punches, kicks, knees, elbows. But I don't do it from a standpoint of like I do it because it helps build confidence and self defense. But it's really how it makes you feel, right? And like you're saying, when you do hard things for whatever reason, it makes you like there's nothing like an hour long training session. It's hard and you have to dig deep and you have to find a way to persevere that you can take that, and I see it everywhere where you can take it into your life. You can take it into your life as a surgeon, as somebody who's really good in school, philosophy, math, whatever. When you take that same tool set, it applies elsewhere, and I just think it's super, super powerful.
Yep. It's one of the reasons, people will do a 5K that've never done a 5K before, or they'll do a Spartan race or a powerlifting meet. There's been a number of workouts. I own a gym, and I completely agree with you, Anton. Every once in a while, my wife and I, or one of my training partners and I, will do something that's pretty terrible, just to remind ourselves that, hey, man, we can still do some terrible things. One day it was, hey, man, we're going to do 500 push-ups this hour. Let's make sure we get it done. And we'll
Yeah.
pick 5 different variations, diamond, ring, regular, one on kettlebells, etc. But we're going to do 500 push-ups this hour, and that's all we're going to do. And he's like, really? I'm like, might as well, because now it's in my head and I said it, if I don't do it, I'm going to be mad at myself because I put it in my head and then didn't do it. But every once
Right.
in a while, you got to do, really, really hard things. And I remember when I was researching about you, I saw some things about this bench press workout that you do, right? The 225.
Yep.
Talk about how that started, how it evolved, where it's at now.
Yeah. So really cool thing. I've always trained and I've always maintained like jujitsu, wrestling, things of that nature. And I lifted on and off over the years. I would go because I always took a lot of pride in like having, I think, a bit of natural strength. Like I could always get a 315. I could always get a 350, and I always got to like a 420 range. But a couple times, like I would try to go too fast up to that level, and I pulled my pec a couple times. So what happened was I listened to a lot of motivational things. So there's a guy named CT Fletcher
Love
years
him.
ago.
Oh yeah.
Love him, right? So I was listening to stuff, and he was really popular at the time. So I started digging in. I go down deep rabbit holes of like watching all these different videos of him talking. I also had a heart attack about 2.5 years ago. So it was really interesting at the time because I was watching these videos and I came across one where what he did was he took guys because he had a gym that he owned out in Compton in California, and he was always one more rep and always pushing super hard, right? Well, he took these guys, real big guys that were big benchers, and they would go and hit their max, whatever their max was. And then he then had them go to see who could get to 200 reps of 225, is what I saw in this video. And I was like, that's really cool. Like, I said, I wonder to myself, just randomly, like, I wonder, like, if I could get to 200 reps. And then I was like, and I wonder if how often I could do it.
Hmm.
And at the time, like it was just a thing where I just decided like I'm gonna try to get to being able to do 200 reps at 225, and I also wanted to see if it would change my body at all. Like I've always been fairly strong, but always in a cardiovascular driven way for wrestling and jujitsu and things of that nature. And so I just because I've always trained, like you said, I was like, I wonder if it'll change my body at all. I wonder if I can do it, right? So I started, and like the first time I did it, I think I did like 80 something to 100 reps, and it was no problem. And then like 3 or 4 days later, I
Hold
did
on, hold
another
on.
hundred.
If I can interrupt, like how long did it take that 80 to 100 reps? Like you do it over half
Like
hour, an
it was
hour?
about 45 minutes to an hour is what it was, and that's kind
Okay.
of always what it ended up being up until now, where it's about I can get to 200 reps to 250 reps. I can get to 250 reps now in like an hour
Okay.
easily. Um, but I worked up to it. So what happened was every week because what I started doing was I would do it like on say it's Monday, right? And then I would wait 4 to 5 days and then do it again. So I was
Jeez.
giving myself a little bit of a break, but I wasn't waiting a week or two to do it again because I was just trying to let my muscles rest enough to
Hmm.
see if I could push and see what would happen. I was really trying to pay attention to my body, not to injure it, not like I knew I was breaking down the muscle fibers, right, and rebuilding, but it seemed to me like if I waited 3 to 4 days, I could do it again. And that's all I've done for the last 2.5 plus years is every like one I'm doing it normally at least twice a week. I'll
Man.
hit
So one of the tenets I have when I train people is that when you press a lot, you got to pull a lot too. If you have a big front side, the big anterior, and you don't have a big posterior, you're going to create a big imbalance, which could lead to injury. So Do you balance that out with a lot of pull-ups, rows, heavy
So
single rows, or what?
I didn't at first. I'll say this. I built up to bench has always been my lift that I felt really good about, and I felt like I was high enough that 225 was a good marker in the way of everyone always tries to measure, can I do 225? How many people in the world can do 225? Like all these different markers of like me pushing myself
Mm-hmm.
to a higher level, and it was
Yep.
just a me thing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So what I did was the first I started doing pull-ups more often about 8 months ago. I hadn't done pull-ups until like 8 months ago because I really wanted to see where I could go with the bench. And it was always enough that it took time. So I'll say that as I grew up to 150, I remember there was a time when I was at 165 reps where I started to feel I was it was a mind body thing where I had to really pay attention to my muscles because I'd start to feel them be at their max in the way of just that that functional strength to where my muscles were getting to that point where like you got to stop now, right? But I would always push that without trying to. I never pulled my pecs, but I would definitely push to the point to where I was like, all right, it's time to be done today. But after I did that, and I would give myself the break and then come back, it seemed like over the course of I'd say 6 months to 8 months, I worked up to that 200 range. And then I started to be like, I feel really good still, so I'm going to keep pushing. So I sit around 250 on a regular. Like I can do 250 all day. I don't know, about a month ago, I did 350, which is the most I've ever done at one time. I'll do occasionally where I'll just see, I'm feeling good today. I want to see how many reps I can do. And so
Gotcha.
I'll shoot to wherever I can go.
Are you still maintaining working with the pull-ups and the rows to balance it out, or not so much yet?
Yeah, so now what I do is if I do bench on Monday, then I'm doing pull-ups on Tuesday, and now it took me again time, but I'm normally around 225 to 250 pull-ups when I do a pull-up workout. So I'll do so my game plan, my idea was in my head was I want to be able to do 250 reps of 225 for bench. I want to be able to do 250 pull-ups, and the next thing I hurt my knee recently, but my next thing is to be able to get to do the equivalent of 225 for 250 reps in squat or leg press. I've had a bad back, like a lower back. It's not horrible, but I've had a pinched nerve bulging disc since I was like 19. So I go back and forth about will it be a leg press more so than and obviously it'd be more than 225 on a leg press, but getting in that habit of really doing. And I've done some leg press workouts, but I don't have it at my house. And the pull ups and the bench are easy to do because I have a setup at my house, so I can hit it whenever I want.
Gotcha. Let's shift gears um, I call them some welcome to questions. So you win, you're a three-time state qualifier in wrestling, two-time champ, records outstanding. Then you go on to JUCO and you win again. Then you go to Ohio State, right? It's a little
Yep.
different. Big Ten, get a scholarship. What was your welcome to Ohio State Big Ten wrestling moment? You're like, oh, okay, some of these guys can really do some things.
Um, I think that it was. I don't know that it was a specific practice, but what I realized when I got there is because I had a national championship coach. My coach, Russ Hellickson, is a great human being. In my opinion, one of the greatest human beings I've ever known. Um, and then Maran Karchilava was one of our assistant coaches. Was a really good Russian wrestler who came over. He's the one that actually saw me wrestle at Michigan State and went back to Russ and was like, "Hey, you got to get this kid on the team," because he saw me wrestle at the Michigan State Open before when I was at Lassen. But it was more or less like coming into a room where, uh, and I'll tell you a little bit about my backstory, where the level was much higher all the way around. Does that make sense?
Yep.
People, I don't like to downplay other divisions, but I'll say that I've been an athlete my whole life and I've trained in lots of different rooms in wrestling and jiu-jitsu and MMA. There is nothing like a Big Ten wrestling room with the
Mm-hmm.
amount of talent. We had a heavyweight national champion, Tommy Rollins, Nick Preston, multiple All-American. Just Mitch Clark was a national champion. He was, I think, the only, if one of a couple people that tech fought a guy in the finals, nationals, because he rolled legs. and he tech falled a guy in the national finals. That was my coach. So I learned how to defend legs because he was so awesome at it while I was there. So just being around that type of energy every day was like you're at the big time. I've never experienced anything like it since.
Sure. I don't know if you follow it currently. Ohio State is outstanding, and Penn State's a lot better
Yes,
overall. So
yes.
Penn State is just
And I was watching.
otherworldly.
I looked at the. I watched the like the rankings before the Big Tens because the Big Tens were this past weekend, and then going into the Big Tens, like looked at how many potential Penn State Big Ten champions there were going to be, and they won 7 out of the 10 weight classes. Ohio
That's right.
State won
Two,
2, and then Michigan won the heavyweight. So
the big boys.
33 and 41 was Ohio State. Everyone else was Penn State, which is crazy, like
Yeah,
insane.
Kale's just really turned it on a whole different level right
I
there.
really wonder what he's been able to do because, like, I wrestled Kale when I was in college. He beat me 13-5, and it was just a great match. For my, like, I went out, did well, decent the first period, but like the way he's been able to coach these kids year after year after, it's a feat that I think is incomprehensible to most people. That
For
he's
sure.
been able, the way they think and the way they operate is different because you have the brand style at Iowa, right, which is the Gable style, which doesn't seem to be doing or having as much of success. I mean, obviously, Penn State gets some of the best wrestlers in the country, but it's something to be able to take these kids and continue to work their minds so that they believe and they go out and perform the way that they do.
Yep. Um, every once in a while in the gym, we'll have wrestlers, and it is so easy to coach them. And when we're doing something painful, because the gym has no air conditioning, so if we're doing like weaves with the sleds back and forth, for conditioning or just for some challenges or constant lunging or constant core work, right? Um, they look not. I'm not going to say they look bored, but they don't look threatened. I can tell you that. The other athletes are working hard. They're all working hard, but if you have your whole practice with your face being smashed into the mat, and that's not happening in the weight room, like the the reference point is so painful that everything else is pretty easy. So the times that we've had wrestlers and we start weaving with the sleds or doing extra work, man, they get more and more excited. They're like, oh wow, so it's a test. Like we're gonna see if we can break people, really,
Yeah.
man. Like they start hopping up and down, and as they're waiting for the sled to come back and it's their turn, and then they just take off to go faster to eliminate the other person's rest interval, and it's absolutely fun watching wrestlers. You guys are just built differently, aren't you?
I think that it's, I asked the kid a long time ago. There was a kid from Ohio State, I can't remember his name, that I had talked to him afterwards about like what wrestling does for people. But it was interesting because his perspective was is that sometimes it's just wrestling draws those type of people where it's like, and I'm gonna say it because like you get so used to cutting weight, right? Like, you have to cut weight to then perform, which is different than so many other sports. Like we'd go on road trips, right? But you'd be cutting weight, so it wasn't really fun. You weren't eating out at all the nice restaurants. You were having to cut weight. It really sucked. It wasn't fun until you were on the way back, and the fun was just eating a really good meal and eating a full meal, right? But these guys, what I've seen, especially at that level, I think any wrestler, they really, and Joe Rogan's talked about this, and I don't like, I just seen it over and over again. When I went through selection to become a Green Beret and got selected, they talked about, Navy SEALs talk about like guys that have wrestled, and swimmers too, but guys that have wrestled, they talk about how they just have this resilience and this no quit attitude that's real and genuine, where they're just going to keep going and keep going because they don't. It's not like they feel like they're gonna die. They're just like, I'm gonna keep going until I can't go anymore. And then they get excited about it. Like you said, a lot of these wrestlers will. Though I had guys on my team. This guy named Johnny Clark. He's the coach at Sacred Heart now. He was always competing, right? I don't necessarily know if I needed to compete all the time, but it was cool, like you said, to see they wanted to be the best at the sled push. They wanted to do another rep. They wanted to do more weight. They wanted to keep challenging themselves constantly because wrestling is that grind. I think that's what I'm trying to hit on is like wrestling is one of the only sports. I've done MMA, I've done boxing, like I've done jiu-jitsu. I do a lot of different types of sports, lifting weights. wrestling is such a grind. Like it's just a grind, and you have to engage your core in ways that you don't at other times consistently over a long period of time, where it just sucks. But you learn to love the suck. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things. And when you take that mindset, you can't help but carry it over into everything else you do. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's probably unhealthy, but I think a lot of the times it's a healthy way to do it.
Sure. My take is usually when people get beat or they break and they quit at things, it's typically not during the actual event itself. It's that downtime in between when you're in your head thinking, "Oh man, this is coming again," or "How long will this be this next time?" or "Can I get through this?" or "Could I get through this?" Once you're actually in the thick of it, you look around, you're like, "Yeah, this is bad, but I'm still breathing. Like there's not, I'm not on the surgery table. I'm not losing a limb." So
Yep.
I just keep moving forward, and I'm trying to do my best. It might be slower, or it might be better or not, but you just keep moving forward, and you get comfortable with that threat, with that constant pressure or the feeling like, "Hey, this is sucks. It's hot. I'm breathing heavy, but I'm breathing heavy. Okay, I can breathe heavy. Just keep breathing heavy like you are, and keep moving forward because at some point everything ends. Everything ends. I will not be running for 10 straight days, right? Everything ends. So you get used to that threshold. So then when there's that downtime, you're like, well, when it comes back, here's my process. I'm okay. I've done these other things. I have a process. I'll be fine. And when they don't have the process and they don't have the confidence from doing it, in that downtime, they get in their head, they start what ifing, and they're like, man, I don't think I can. And that's like, oh man, just go, just go. You'll be fine. Just keep going. How about when you're in the so you left Ohio State? Did you immediately enlist right after?
No, I came home because I graduated in December of 23, and then I was home and enlisted, and it was on a whim. Like I had a Jesse Lang was a teammate of mine at Ohio State, and he was a Marine like reservist guy. So because I knew him, I kind of in the back of my mind was always like, I wonder if I would like the military. Like I wonder, like comparatively, what is that like compared to wrestling, right? So I had graduated, come home. I was working at Allen County Juvenile Facility here in town. Wasn't sure what I really wanted to do. Was thinking about like maybe trying to do like an FBI, CIA type deal. And at the time, people were like, "Well, if you go join the military and you have a 4 year degree, you'll be able to write your own ticket, right?" And so I didn't tell anybody, but I went to this career day and ended up enlisting in the Army. When I went down to there, I was looking around, Marines, Navy, got to the Army table, and I don't know what was in me, but I was like, skip it. I'm gonna try it and see what it's like. And so I signed up. I didn't go that day, obviously, but I signed up to go in and start doing my tests, and then talked to a recruiter and went and did the whole thing to go in. But
That
I
was
apologize. Go ahead.
that was 04, right?
Yeah, that was 04. Yep.
04. And so you went in the army. What was your job? And I think you said you ended as a sergeant. What was your job, and what was your welcome to the army moment? You're like, holy cow, this is a little bit different than what I'm used to.
Yeah. So the Army was post college, right? And I was basically, for me, in a weird way, trying to compare military training to like wrestling, right? I wanted to see if it was as hard. And uh, I joined up. I was became a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout. My 4 years were really interesting though because I went to a lot of cool schools. I never ended up getting deployed. Um, and so it was like an experience. I was at four different bases, like during the time that I was in. But I would still say that my aha moment, or like, okay, you're in it, is because you voluntarily joined, right? So I volunteered. I went the enlisted route because nobody in my generation had gone to the military yet, so I didn't know what to expect. I was told that I could have been an officer, but I didn't feel like that was the right way to go just because I didn't know anything about it. So I went the enlisted route as an E4, and which is specialist, Cavalry Scout, but I knew as soon as I got in, they had an 18 X-ray program, but which is means you can try to go to selection or try to go become a Green Beret out of like off the street, but if you don't make it, then you go to the needs of the Army. And I was like, that doesn't really sound like a good idea to me. Like, for some reason, I don't make it. I just go wherever. So I was like, I'm going to go be a 19 Delta Cav Scout. While I was in basic training, I started to try and figure out what I could do, like how I could get on the wrestling Army team if it was possible. And then I started to ask about the selection process to go become a Green Beret. I was trying to be high speed. Like, I just wanted to go do all the cool training. But when you get to basic, it's different because, you sign up and it's whatever they want you to do. I remember um, going the in processing process, right, where you're sitting at parade rest for hours. You're just waiting to go out to go to basic. That was a process. And then once you get to basic, they give you your stuff. Everybody gets issued the same gear. You get to the barracks, they have you start yelling. They start yelling at you. I was part of India Company. I just remember being in this bus, them yelling at you to get your shit out on the ground, go through your stuff. You've bought some stuff that you can't even take with you. You got to throw away because they say you can't have it, and they're just yelling at you. And it's just a lot of craziness and them yelling. And I realized that I was a grown man. Like, okay, this is a part of the like little hazing process or whatever. But it was also like I wasn't. I knew that I wasn't going to try and bring any undue attention to myself because I knew that wasn't a good idea. They always said, like, hey, don't be that guy if you can avoid being that guy. And I had what I thought was discipline. I had worked hard. I had worked hard my whole life, cutting weight, wrestling, playing football. I played football in high school. So in my head, I was just like, just listen, shut up, do what they tell you to do. And if you did that, then you were okay. I didn't. I got through most of basic where I didn't have. I weighed about 226 at the time. I was, yeah, probably about 226, but I almost maxed. I should have maxed my PT test. I got robbed of 2 push-ups, and I would have maxed my PT test, but I still was almost at my max on my push-ups. They had given them to me, then they took them away. But I felt like it was a great learning experience of like, it was different because you had to shut the F up and do what they were telling you to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it was the weakest one is always the one they pay attention to, right? If you're smarting off, if you're talking back, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, then you get attention. If you make your bed, if you're respectful at all times and do what you're supposed to do, then you tend to stay out of trouble. And that's all. I followed that. Every time we went somewhere in basic, we were marching or running. We were doing push-ups. I would do pull-ups out of the chow. You didn't have to, but I would do pull-ups at the pull-up bar on the way into chow, on the way out of chow every day, 3 times a day, because they give you 3 square meals. It was pretty cool. Like, it was a really cool experience. Like, I enjoyed it. I didn't really like being limited to where because they tell you when to get up, they tell you when to go to bed. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That whole you can't talk to anybody, no family or anything. Like, it was just a different experience. And then you're with guys. Some of these guys, it was their alternative to going to jail, so it was a little bit different. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yep. Um, some people join the military for any number of reasons. One is because they feel called. Some others because they want to lead and they're great athletes. Others because they're not that bright and they don't have any other jobs. Some people need the money for school. Some people are trying to avoid going to jail or they got bad home lives, and
Yeah.
so they take everybody in. And as long as they keep hitting the standard, they get to stay.
Yeah.
If they consistently miss standard and they can't elevate, then just like anybody else, they get fired and get kicked out, and they got to figure out life afterwards. So there's a lot to be said about just like keeping quiet and shutting up, and then learning what's going on around you before you make a
Yeah.
move, before
Yep.
you want to speak up, and also, you know, you're in a completely foreign environment. You should take some time and gather yourself and learn what's going on versus just popping off. And usually the ones that are the loudest are usually just annoying. They're not really the big threats. The ones that are like I've coached. We had a couple rangers that were at my gym,
Yeah.
and they were lethal killers,
Yeah.
right? And they were always like attentive and aware, but they'd be kidding around. They're not mouthing off. But if they wanted to flip that switch, it's always at their readiness. So um, they're not the ones out there advertising, "Hey, I can kill you," right?
Yeah.
There's,
100%. I think that
there,
that's what's cool about the elite in any military branch, Rangers, Green Berets, Navy SEALs, Marine Recon. Those dudes are all like they're special dudes. They're unique dudes, and they tend not to be the assholes, what I'll say. And I'm just saying that from the standpoint of, you've had those athletes that really flamboyant, really yelling and loud, and and I've met a few of them that were awesome athletes too. You know what I mean? But the majority are the ones that are humble and quiet and just want to do the work. I was the guy that always was like, I'm going to do the work, and I'm going to do more work in the shadows when people don't see me, so that when I show up, when I'm on point, right? When I'm on point, uh, I show up and do and perform my best. And it was always the mental aspect that made the difference.
For sure. The my wife and I we had to run to the Arnold yesterday. So yesterday was Sunday. We're recording on a Monday right now,
Yeah.
and one of my old former athletes, he qualified in the strongman category, and he was competing. And we're there in the main hall, which has tens of thousands of people, right? And it's wall to wall, like you're at the best bar of your life, where everyone can try to not to spill a drink. You're that close to everybody, but
Yeah.
the douche factor was so high. People, mostly guys, a few girls, but mostly guys. It's like 95% male in there, and they're walking around with their cut up shirts, and you're like, bro, you don't squat 500. Like, they're walking around with their belts on. Like, we'll just walk around, and the belts are closed, they're tight, and I'm like, when I put my belt on like that, it's so tight I could barely breathe. You only want it on for a moment while you do a heavy lift. They're
Yeah.
walking around the whole time with their belts on, and I'm like, now a few guys showed up where they're like making fun of Hans and Franz from back on the Saturday
Yeah.
Night
Yeah.
Live days. So they're just having fun with it, like
Mhm.
making fun of them. But other people are like legit, man. Hey, man, like they're ready to go. And they bump into you and like, hey, man, watch where you going. I'm like, there's 50,000 people in this room, buddy. Like what are you talking about? But you're right. The ones that are they're at that high, they're at that level. They're usually pretty quiet about it, unless they're. There's always a few that really get into something, but the ones that got to that level are like, there's no point in me talking about it, because if I have to, I'm just going to show you.
100%. I like those
Well,
guys.
I like those guys too, and usually those guys are willing to teach me something, so I'm always grateful.
100%. Yeah.
You talk about mindset, and it's easy to throw that word around, and not be as specific. But your record wasn't undefeated in high school or college, right? There are times when everyone takes a loss. Talk about a loss or two. You're like, well, shoot, man, I really had to learn something here about myself or my approach, and how you were able to bounce back and evolve from losses.
Well, I have a few stories of those for sure. So when I started wrestling, this is a story I like to tell because I feel like it's affected me for the rest of my life. And I have a little bit, like, I don't talk about it much for my story on a mental side, where I wasn't at my best for a while, but we can come back to that later. But what I will say is that when I was 7 years old, okay, I started wrestling when I was 7. I remember the first day I started wrestling. I don't remember any other sport, any other thing, but I remember the first day my brothers came home. I have older brothers that wrestled in high school, and they had come home. I remember where we lived. We had a little foyer in our house, and my brothers ran through the door and were like, "Dad, you got to get Anton into wrestling. They're going to have this little wrestling like kids club." And I just remember perking up like, "What?" Like, it sounded super cool to me because I was super, like, I was a kid that was always working out since I was little, man. Like, I loved to go work out. I used to go to the park every day and play basketball. I used to run up in the summertime. We lived like a block away from a park. I was at 7 years old walking down the alley to the park because I wanted to go play something. But these guys came home, and it, like, I just remember thinking, like, man, this sounds like something I'm really gonna like. And so that night they showed us, they showed me the top bottom position, right? Because we had this little space. And from that day on, I loved it. But that year, right, I was 7 years old. I'm 46 years old now. So this still has a deep, profound effect on me because I had a pretty good year. I was probably like a 60-40 year or whatever, maybe more, 70-30. Every week in freestyle wrestling, you would see the same kids, right? This kid named Kerry Funk that I wrestled, I couldn't beat him. Like, he felt stronger than me. I couldn't do things that I was kind of like a natural athlete, I think, where I could move and make things happen and win matches. And this kid I couldn't do it to. And so the first 3 times that I wrestled him, he beat me. And he was the only person that was the case. Like, I felt like it was this insurmountable, like, thing. But every time I wrestled him, I kept digging deeper. Like, there has to be a way. I got to work harder. I got to do something different. I got to try and figure out a way. Is it possible? Will I be able to beat this person? Or are they just going to beat me every time I wrestle them? And I really worked on things to be better and to work harder and to be in better shape. So the first part of that season of freestyle, the first 3 times I saw him, he beat me. But every time I got a little bit better. I got a little bit closer. And by the third match, I think I got a takedown, and it was a pretty close match. And I believed that I could. Before then, I didn't think it was possible, but I started to believe maybe it's possible if I do just a couple more things right, that I'll be able to get him. And sure enough, the next match, I ended up out wrestling him and beat him by points. And it was the coolest thing ever because I basically experienced something that I didn't think was possible, because up until that time, I couldn't do it, right? And I'm only 7 years old, but then I beat him again the second time. And then I beat him the third time, and it was for the state championship, to be a freestyle state champion. So I was like a 5 or 6 time freestyle state champion and a schoolboy national champ when I was 12. But that season, that first season where I had a number of losses, this one particular, and we ended up being friends. I saw him a couple years ago. He's coaching, and his kid was wrestling at the time. It was super cool. But in that, like, and I've always thanked him for that experience. I'll never forget his name, Kerry Funk, because it was such a thing to experience loss and then realizing that you can work harder, you can do more, and to keep going into the fight to hope that you can get the outcome. And I was thinking about it earlier when you were talking about those people that are prepping for that, like you said, like when you know it's going to be hard or you're going to go back out there, like that to me is like a really unique place that wrestling affords you the opportunity to experience, because it's a grind in high school for 6 minutes, in college for 7 minutes, where there's something really special about when you get into it and you're wrestling somebody that's on your level or better, how deep you go into the mind and the body cardiovascularly, how not to make mistakes but still be effective, how to try and get that takedown, how to try and get that one takedown in the last 3 seconds to win the match, to win it all, right? It's such a fulfilling thing, but it's also such a deep, I call it the dark place. You got to be willing to go to that dark place and come all the way to grips with it and find a way to keep fighting. And sometimes you do that and you lose, but you still grow a lot, in my opinion. But when you can do that thing and you can face that darkness and end up coming out on top, it's such an amazing thing that I think can mold you and change you for the rest of your life. At least it did for me. You know what I mean? I was 7 years old and I still talk about it because of how much of an effect it had.
Yeah, yeah. When I ask the question, how do you eat? How do you eat an elephant? The answer is one bite at a time, right? So along those lines, I think it's easy to train your brain to get all your answers quickly, whether it's on your phone or you get Amazon to deliver something tomorrow. You could change and watch whatever you want now on TV versus wait for the show to come on. Like on Thursday
Yep.
nights, it used to be Seinfeld for me.
Yeah.
Everything is so immediate. And so patience is gone. And if you're not able to have and be comfortable with tiny little micro wins, the large wins will never occur. The large wins are hard enough as it is, but now you're just going to get beat because you can't just get those micro wins. So again, that's the reason why our mantra is win the day.
Yeah.
Because even if you have that big win, you win the state title,
Yeah.
right? What do you do tomorrow? You still got to get up and try to do something with your life. Or a week
Yep.
from now, I can't tell you statistically how many astronauts have been outside of Earth and they're at the pinnacle of their career and they think, well, I can't be anything more than this. And they end up being alcoholics that can't even work.
Right.
Whether you, so the first lesson, honestly, take small wins, right? Take those small bites. And I don't know if you saw a couple episodes back, but I signed up for this event in 24 to swim with the Navy SEALs across the Hudson River. Yeah, right. And I never swam in my life other than
Yeah,
lessons when I was a kid. So I gave myself 15-month runway.
yeah,
And so day one in the pool, I swam a length and I'm like, holy Jesus, I don't know how to breathe. I don't know what the
yeah,
hell's going on here. And
yeah,
so I did 10 lengths, wrote down in my notes how I did, and I'm like, okay, this is bad. I'm at the I'm at the bottom. And so but I kept tracking this book of daily wins where if I swam 2 days next week, and the first week I only did one because I started on a Friday. Because Thursday night I decided I'm doing this. Friday was the next possible day to swim, so I swam. So the next week I did 2 swim days. I'm like, shoot, man, I already doubled my volume. I'm winning, right?
yeah,
And if I get to 3 or 4, or I get a couple days in a row, so if you can bite it off that way and then have a short focus, hey, I'm just trying to get to this next thing. And you guys know when like people are dying in basic, if you make it to the next meal,
yeah,
that's kind of a win.
yep,
And just get comfortable with enjoying the process that you're building yourself.
yeah,
Like you would probably pay money to go back and have those exact same losses at that age,
100%.
so you could have the turnaround,
Yeah,
right?
I used to think that it was all about winning when I was young. Like, gotta win, gotta win, gotta win. But you realize that the losses really are the things that mold you more into becoming whatever it is you're going to become. And like you said, when you go through selection to be a Green Beret, it's a very grueling process. But I love that. I loved going through selection and doing land nav out of Camp McCall down in North Carolina, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I loved that training more than anything else I've ever done in the military, period, because you're out walking in the woods for hours on hours, the 65-pound ruck. You're doing all these different types of obstacles with teammates and sometimes by yourself. But like you said, because I was older at that time, I had had a back injury, I had knee injury, and I was like you just said, small little wins, win the day, win this, like finish this ruck, finish
Yeah.
this obstacle, finish this thing, and be proud of yourself for getting through the day. It was hot as shit, 90 some degrees in North Carolina. Like, it was no joke. Like, but it was awesome. Like, it was one of the funnest times I ever had.
I think that's really how you just build happiness. There's things that are terrible, but you can have a good time. I had a 2-year summer job where I'm just mowing. I'm working at this university where I'm like on the grounds crew, where I'm pushing a mower for 7-8 hours a day, where we get breaks and
Yeah,
that's it. But so the first half of the week we're just pushing mowers. The second half we're doing the weed whacker, and that's a 40-hour week.
yeah,
That's terrible work, right?
yeah,
But these guys that are with, they were always a few years older than me. They were in college and stuff, and they were super funny. So at breaks or at lunch, they'd be talking about this or going out to the bars and trying to hook up with girls, blah blah blah. And so every time we were working together or we're trimming bushes, we're always just laughing.
yeah,
It was 95 degrees and humid, right? And
yeah,
but so you can have some joy along the way doing some really terrible things. And once you get used to that, if you get used to the mundane, like those, it's still single leg and double leg takedown that wins most of the matches, right? It's
oh,
still
yes,
it's still the basics. So if you got to get really comfortable with the boring things,
yes.
not have the new shiny toy. If you can get comfortable with the boring things and hone that, that's where you build greatness. So just find some joy in the struggle, and you can build greatness that way.
Yeah, I love that, and I've definitely cultivated that for myself. It wasn't always that way, but the last probably 4 or 5 years, it's really become that way. I really like Coach Tom Ryan from Ohio State talks about chosen suffering, and I really believe like that, like that's where it's at. Grinding it out. There's something really powerful. I tell people that I train, I know I tell myself this, when you're 45 minutes into a roll and you have some 350-pound dude on top of you and it really, really, really sucks, but you find a way to get through and not get tapped and to end up on top. Or if you're doing a really, yesterday, with these guys that I was training, we did some sparring to the body. We did some push pull, which is a wrestling style like movement because it really engages the core. And then we did push ups, we did ab work, and we did pull ups. It was a great little hour-long workout. And one of my dudes was like, bro, that was like brutal. Like, he's like, I've been truly humbled. But like, to me, that's the point, right? Like, through that process, we grow. I don't know why it happens. I really don't. But it's universally true, right? when you suffer and you choose to go do some hard shit, it makes you a better person somehow, and I don't know why that is.
Sometimes, I don't know if some people they need to hear all the whys before they move forward. Other times they'll say, "Hey, man, I trust you enough. I don't need to know why. I'm going to go anyways." Other times you don't even need to know the answer, but you just know it's always been true for you,
Right.
and that's going to be enough. Like
100%.
if I went through all how you build the brain with neuroplasticity and your synapses, like you're gonna be like, "Who cares, man? I just know this works." I'm like,
Yes.
fuck, fair enough. Like,
Yes.
let's keep going. I don't need to.
It's
I can just shut up and move forward.
it's such a beautiful thing, man. And it's real. Like I say it all the time, and I tell people all the time because I talk to people. I am always talking about training. I'm always challenging the people around me. Not especially as they get older, right? Because they talk about like today, right now, they talk about how lifting for people that are in their 40s and 50s and 60s is super important for longevity for you to
Huge,
be around and not
huge.
die when you break your hip or your knee when you're 65 or 70 years old. So I'm always talking to people about like I talk about it, but I really live it every day, and that I do it because I love it, but I also know what it does for me. Like I told you, I hurt my knee a few weeks back. I think I re-injured a knee injury that I have at Ohio State my senior year at the Nationals. My career ended because I partially tore my MCL and PCL at the national tournament. And I was showing a jiu-jitsu move the other day in practice, and it was really weird because it was nothing major. I was just showing this move. I stepped over. I felt a little like that felt weird, but nothing crazy. But 20 minutes later, when I was rolling live, like I put my leg up at an angle, and it was like deep, sharp pain.
Ooh,
I haven't gone to get it looked at. It's gotten better. I'm just the way I am. I know that eventually it's going to get better as long as I take it easy. But I've had to curb how I'm training in the last few weeks, right? But I'm still training, and that's my point. Is like it's such a powerful thing, but you can never understand it until you do it. Whatever that is, right? Whatever it's lifting weights, hitting a heavy bag, going for a 10-mile run, like Goggins talks about that type of stuff. Oh, I'm just going to go for a 5-miler today. And then he gets out there and he's hitting 10, 15, 20 miles because the shit just makes you feel amazing. And that to me is the point, right? It's not about how it makes you look, it's about how it makes you feel. And that's what I always try to hit on people. Now, all the other benefits come just by consistently doing whatever it is. But I just can't, I'll never, like, I'll go to my grave, like, knowing I still do it because it's therapeutic for me. It helps me work shit out. I feel better as a human being. And that's, like, I'm addicted to that. Like, it makes me feel good. And that's what I love.
yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Quick side note, I don't know if you've read David's book. He has two out.
Yeah, I listened to both of them.
Listen, okay, so have you listened to or read Living with Seal?
No, but I know of it. I know the guy. What's his name? The podcaster guy. That's the guy that was that him
Jesse
or was it the?
Jesse Itzler.
Yeah, so he's the billionaire guy. So
Yeah,
I've
that's
listened
right.
to. I was just listening to some of his podcasts the other day.
Now, yeah, in that book, Living with Seal, you're going to get a few lessons, fine. But there are legit moments when I'm reading it and I am laughing out loud like I'm watching Wedding Crashers. It is it is hysterical when he's describing the conversations, literally about what's going back and forth, and at no time is it ever listed or mentioned that it's David, but it comes out years later after the book was published that it was.
uh
And so if you just want to feel better, read the book or listen to it. I like to read it because I always you see the books behind me. I always want to underline things.
yeah, yeah, for
But
sure.
but it's hysterical, and you can reread it in the weekend. It's super short, but man, it's just super fun.
I love it. I'll have to listen to it. I'm definitely gonna listen to it. I like both Goggins books as well, but that Jesse guy, I've been listening to some of his stuff, and he's got some really good stuff out there.
He
So
sure
I'll
does.
definitely check it out.
When you're training and you're doing your push up, not push up, your bench press workout, where you're getting as many reps as you can. What do you like to listen to?
I'm an R&B and like hip hop kind of guy, old school hip hop R&B. I don't know why. I just have always liked like something with the beat, and I'm either listening to that or I'll listen to motivational YouTube videos. Like I'll listen to stuff about the 1% or going the extra mile. Like if I'm in the mood, I don't like the commercials that I get on YouTube, so that's the only reason why I won't stay on YouTube. But depending on the day, like, but it's normally hip hop. I'll listen to some rock sometimes too, like Linkin Park type stuff because that gets me amped up. But
Yep,
that's pretty much it.
gotcha. Um, What's a bucket list adventure you'd like to do?
I would love to go to the pyramids. Some architectural things out there that I would love to go see and experience. The pyramids is probably number one for me, just because I've always been interested in them, how they're built, what they look like up close and personal. But just in general, there's some different places throughout the world where they don't really know how they made them. There are
Mm,
these cities that I can't think of the name of the place. I was going to say that one as well. That it was
Mayans.
basically they said made. It was a rock inside of like a mountain that they dug rock out into this beautiful city, and it was all dug, they believe, from the top, but none of the rock is still there. They don't know what they did with it, where they moved it to, and I think it would be awesome to go see those types of places.
Awesome. What's your favorite sports movie?
For me, it's got to be Rocky Four or Rudy, one of those two. Like I went to Philadelphia and I ran the stairs at the time. They didn't have the Rocky
Statue?
statue up top anymore; it's down at the bottom. But
Yeah.
that was the coolest thing ever to
Su-
do.
super cool. How about a favorite sport to watch?
Um, Man, that's a tough one. I would say I mean, MMA period is fun to watch, but sometimes you think, nowadays it's just there's so much of it. I say MMA or college football. I like to watch college football. National championship is a fun thing to watch.
Who's your favorite athlete to watch? He could be, he or she could be, current, dead, whatever.
For me, you said I didn't think about a dad, but I think it would have been really cool to talk to or to know Miyamoto Musashi, who's a famous samurai swordsman. He's one of the most famous samurai swordsmen ever. Super cool dude. 13 battles to death and then fought like another, I think, 20 or 15, something like that, with the stick. So he vowed not to kill people anymore, and then lived into his 60s in a mountain, became like a philosopher essentially. I think it would be really cool to talk to him. Alive, it'd probably be Fedor in his prime, Fedor Emelianenko in MMA. But he was. I think he's one of the best MMA fighters ever. He was just fun to watch, just a good dude. So I'd say that'd probably be top of my list.
I had the Musashi book. I have the Hagakure. I had the Five Rings.
Yeah.
All good stuff. And that's someone who is at the highest level in control of his craft
Yes.
and has total understanding of every nuance. The knowledge piece is so high. The discipline is so high.
Yeah,
How
I have
about,
the book of Five Rings, and I love it. Like
yep.
it's a life changing book for sure.
It's one of the books that Louis Simmons recommends that everyone read out of West Side
That's
Barbell. So,
awesome. That's
yep.
awesome.
Um, how about a superhero? And it could be a real person or fictional.
I thought about that, man, and it's like for me, I'm weird where I like watching a lot of that stuff, and I guess I came all the way back to it. Maybe it's because when I was a kid, they had the cartoons on after school, but I really like the idea of Batman. You know what I mean? Like a human being that creates these tools that help them be super,
Yeah.
right? But he was still a person. He was still a human being, but he was doing good things, and he was trying to make the world a better place. I had to pick Batman, which I didn't think for me was going to be that, but I was thinking about it, and the other superheroes all have some superhero
Power.
thing, right?
Yeah, right.
He was just a human being that had some cool tools, so I really dig that.
He's probably the most common selection when ask people on this show.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
People like
I
that.
wonder why that is. Why do you
They
think that is?
they keep saying he built it from nothing or he had means, but he didn't waste his money. Like he kept building things and kept evolving things from his brain, his skill, and he kept working at things, and he always used it for good, right? So it wasn't just born into him. He had to build it. He had to build it, and people respect the work.
That's cool.
How about a villain? Do you like?
So I was thinking about this, at first I thought it was this other dude, but it's really Thanos. Thanos is like that guy, man. Like just a really bad villain, powerful, strong. Like I think about him, like, man, how much would that suck to come across an energy like that was so powerful yet so evil and trying to kill off half of all existence, right? To have some powers. I was like, that's pretty scary, and uh, I'm thankful that I haven't run across anything like that I know
Right.
of.
Yeah, for sure. Is your favorite lift the bench press?
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to say it's not, but it just really truly is, man. I love to hit the bench. I love what I've developed. I used to think, I used to wonder, like, man, I think anybody can do it. If you can lift 225 pounds once, I feel like anybody can work up to this. I don't know if that's true. I have friends that have always been like, bro, that's some different shit. The mind body connection, which is definitely true. Like, I definitely had to break through barriers to get up to that and then to consistently stay at that. There's not a lot of people that are doing that on a regular basis. Um, but I absolutely love, it's like my own little thing. It's like in my way, it's my own little Goggins going for a 20-mile run. It's me hitting the bench and pushing myself because it's easy now. I say that I don't mean that disrespectfully to anything or anyone, but like I can get 250 every time you know what I'm saying? I can, and sometimes I'll push. I'll go a little bit higher. Like last week, I went heavier, right? Instead of going reps, I went up to 365 and did some reps. But I love the idea of I just love how the bench makes me feel, and I think it's really cool to. I look at it as a functional strength thing now. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it's great if somebody can bench 700-800 pounds, but if I can throw 225 pounds up 250 times, 350 times, to me, I think that's something that's pretty cool, and it tells me, and everyone tells me when I'm doing jujitsu, like, bro, you're so much stronger than you used to be, and I'm not a small guy. I walk around at 260. You know what I mean? So like, but they're like, I know it helps with my jiu-jitsu, my push-pull aspect, and that's why the pull-ups matter too. So I love everything about it.
I was with this bench clinic, and Spotto, I can't remember his first name. Spotto was the facilitator, and he's a 700 bencher, right? And so the Spotto bench press, which is a movement where you bring the bar all the way down your chest, you hold it for 2 inches off your chest and pause, and then press. So a lot of times people will bounce. So a competition bench, you got to pause, but he
Yeah.
would do this thing where he wanted an isometric hold at the bottom. He did it so many times, they called it a Spotto bench press, but after his last name, Spotto. Anyways, he's doing this clinic, and it was occurring the same time that the combine is going on in Indianapolis for the NFL prospects.
Yeah.
And one of the events there is a 225 bench press for max reps. And I said, man, how many do you think you can get, buddy? And he wasn't being a jerk. He goes, man, I haven't done something that light in forever. Because, if he warms up at 315, he's still 40% of his max.
Yeah.
So he goes, all right, well, let's just give it a shot. So they set up 225 and he starts cranking them out. And after minutes, he's talking while he's doing it. Like I'm talking to you right now.
Yeah.
And at 80, he goes, is it cool if I stop? 80 without
Yeah.
stopping. Is it cool if I stop? And we're like, yeah, you can stop if you want. He goes, I'm probably getting closer to the end, but this is getting to be kind of a. And I was like, man, watch that. 80. Just
Yeah.
80 reps
Yeah.
without stopping. It was amazing.
It's
Do you have
awesome.
do you have a quote for us?
Um, Not a quote. I have the Invictus poem.
Okay.
Um, I don't. I normally can do it off the cuff. It's right over there. But it's like, let me see if I can do the whole thing. Out of the night, dark as a pit from. Well, hold on. Let me. Black as a pit from pole to pole. I think whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms the horror of the shade, but yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charges punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the master of my fate and the captain of my soul. William Ernest Henley. And normally I can do the whole thing. I haven't looked at it for a long time, but it's Invictus. And a long time ago, I came up with this little active. I always talk about being active, and it's kind of cool because it's ACTIV is the way I look at it in capitals.
Mm-hmm.
But I took it, things that I've acquired over the years, and I call it active living, which is A stands for Kitas, C stands for Carpe Diem, T stands for Toujours Prey, I is Invictus, and V is Veritas, which is just justice, seize the moment, always ready, unconquerable, and truth. and I try to live all that. So I came up with this thing a long time ago, but that Invictus poem has always been a really strong thing that I try to live by.
Beautiful, beautiful. Where can people find you, Anton, if they're looking for you?
I'm just on Facebook and Instagram, man. So if you ever want to just look me up by my name, Anton, last name Talamantes, Talamantes. But that's the only two places that I really do. I'm on YouTube sometimes, but I don't have a big presence there. I need to probably improve that.
Okay. And as always, people keep sending us emails, info at athlete-builder.com. I'm Jim Beebe, and we are powered by the AEA Institute, where we have the Mental Edge Academy, mental performance for athletes. Anton, great having you on. I enjoyed the time. Fun stories. I love the energy. I love the passion and the authenticity that you bring as you're talking about your mission and how you want to impact people. So, thanks for taking the time today, Anton. I really enjoyed it.
Hey, thank you for having me, man. It was awesome.
For sure.